Hello, welcome back. This topic may be familiar to those of you already in Canada, and it may come as advice to those of you who are yet to arrive. And I'm talking about spending all your money. Let me just elaborate. Once you start preparing to come to Canada, many people are selling their assets. They're selling their house, their car, maybe a holiday home. They're selling everything. So for the first time in their life, they're seeing their net worth as liquid, as a number sitting in the bank account. Exciting, I know. However, when you arrive here, we've seen too many people get into trouble because of that. Let me explain. Maybe you arrive and you can afford to buy a house because now you have what amounts to maybe a couple of $1,000,000 when you've made depending on exchange rate. Let me just add one thing. One of the first habits you have to One of the first habits, or I'm just call it a habit, but one of the first things that you have to think about and maybe stop doing when you come is stop thinking about the the cost of things in the currency of your previous home, especially when that currency has an advantage over the Canadian currency. For example, if you're coming from the US, you'd automatically have approximately about 30% advantage. Don't think of it in those terms because eventually you'll be earning Canadian dollars, and that's what you have to try and think about when you're making those purchases. So let's start first of all with the house. People will come here and say, "Well, I've got the money. I've seen this beautiful house. I want to buy it." I would say hold off. Understand the area you're in. I actually did a previous video on that, but just briefly, give yourself about a year or year or two so that you understand the market, understand the area, because people have overpaid. For example, if there's a Canadians buying a house for 400,000, well, you wouldn't get a house for that now in Toronto, but let's say 400,000. And that house is worth 400,000, but it's 500,000 to someone coming in. They can pay the 20% difference because they've got more than that as a buffer. They're still thinking of it in their currency as opposed to Canadian dollars. So you can overpay, and we've seen that. Another thing you have to be aware of is banking. Don't put all your money in one bank. And don't get locked into long-term commitments, long-term investment commitments until you understand the products and what's really out there. Because the first bank you meet or where the money's transferred to, is going to see the number. Start moving it to at least two other banks, just to spread it around and give yourself some options. Because every bank won't offer the same products or services. So it gives you time to assess it and make some decisions for the long term. Cars. You see the car. I wanted that car back home and I couldn't afford it then, or we had some other things going on. Now I have this cash money. I can buy it cash, or I can say, well, I'll lease it or I'll rent it and I'll go 2 steps up because I can. Stop thinking in foreign currency, think in Canadian dollars. At this point, you may not have a job yet. You don't know where your income's coming from. You're spending your net worth, and you don't know how long you're going to be unemployed for. When you have time, sit down. I should say, when I say when you say have time, but I'm saying initially sit down with other family members of your family and create a budget. Because you don't know if you're going to be out of work for a year, 2 years, and that happens. It may be in between. You may have odd jobs or jobs which are contract, depending on your nature of work. But be aware of those things. This is just something that I'm putting out there because we've seen people turn up and spend money far too quickly because they were spending in their mind, spending in their own currency, but spending far, far too quickly. I hope that provided some insight. Take care. See you in the next video.